All right, I'm back. We got a presentation up, and I'm going to get going because I think this is a pretty quick session, and there's a lot of other organizations that are going to be talking about strengthening Arizona through grants and partnerships. And I can use this. Looks like. Hi. There we go. All right, so kind of to set the stage, in 2020, DFFM was a relatively small forestry organization. We maybe had about 4 to 6 staff that were really dedicated foresters. Kind of fast forward today, there's about 40 foresters in our district statewide, and there's about an additional 30 that work in statewide programs. So we've really significantly and rapidly have grown over the past 3 to 4 years. So that's just so you know where we've been and where we are now. And what is our purpose with wildfire mitigation? So in about, again, 2020, 2021, we received some state-appropriated funding with the purpose of identifying and removing hazardous vegetation from state, federal, tribal, and private lands in Arizona. As you can see on my really fancy state of Arizona outline there, it's all lands in Arizona. And that's really cool and really important. We're able to direct funding and resources to all lands in the state of Arizona, primarily for fire prevention, critical infrastructure protection, and forest and watershed restoration. As Director Torres mentioned earlier, we have some huge goals that are set by our department and the governor's office. In state fiscal year 24, we treated just about 24,000 acres, and Christine's gonna go into this, but about 16,000 of those acres were on non-federal land. And it's really impressive and really unique, I would say. Not all of it through the mechanism she's gonna mention, but we're very active on non-state, non-private unincorporated lands in Arizona. And we really focus on high-priority wildland urban interface, state, and again, private unincorporated lands. We can't accomplish this, especially this new 40,000 acre goal that our department has, without strong partnerships and collaborators. And I know a lot of them, if not everyone, is in the room today. I'd be surprised if there isn't someone here that hasn't partnered with us or isn't already a collaborator. And if that's the case and you feel like you aren't, I'd love to meet you after this talk or at some point and chat about how we can. So who do we work with? We work with everyone that's involved in natural resource management. Federal and state agencies, counties, municipalities, fire districts and departments, utility companies, again, Christine's gonna mention some of this, nonprofit organizations. We also have a very strong and growing relationship with private contractors. Again, let's go back to about 2020, we maybe had like 4 or 5 real viable contractors on our statewide list, our statewide contractor list. This is for wildland fuel reduction services throughout Arizona. Our list has now grown to almost 50. And so we have a lot of interest from private industry to do work in Arizona. Other thing I want to mention is, and I have to put this in every slide for presentation I ever give, we want to know your priorities. We're really receptive to understanding what that is, and in many instances adopting that as our priority so we can better collaborate and find the best piece of ground to do work on. How do we work with our partners and collaborators? Well, we have probably the most robust grant programs, I would say, in the state when it comes to, again, natural resource management. We have Healthy Forest Initiative grants. These are grants that can vary anywhere from $20,000 to $500,000. We have invasive plant grants. There was a gentleman earlier who was asking about invasive plant grants. We receive funding each year until 2029 specifically for invasive plant grants. We also have rural fire capacity grants. I know Aaron Kassem and his team are here today, and if you have any questions about that program, feel free to reach out. Community challenge grants, these are in our urban and community forestry programs. Think tree plantings, think tree inventories, think trainings, certification programs. And we have tree grants. These are kind of more specific to our urban program, but these are available to communities that participate in like our Tree USA program. And then community wildfire defense grants, I won't go too much into that, but we also have staff here who can talk about that. These are grants that are available for developing or updating community wildfire protection plans, as well as implementing projects as defined and outlined in those plans. All right, so take a picture of this. This is super important. I'm throwing our grants manager on the bus. He has no idea that I put his contact info on here. But if you're interested in our grant programs, there's our website, there's our grants email, and Josh Hudson, he's our grants manager. He understands all these programs better than anyone. The last thing I'll mention is we do also have some cost share programs. This one is specifically called our bark beetle reduction cost share program. This is a program where if a private landowner or other entity has trees that are known to be infested currently with bark beetles, we split the cost of the removal of that tree or trees. It's a really great program. We've been running it for years. And I just wanted to mention it because we do a lot on private land, not only with this program, but with other programs. If our projects align with private property, or if there's a strategic piece of private property that we'd like to accomplish, we can enter into agreements through signing MOUs with private landowners to get that work done. So I spoke for way too long, and I'm going to kick it over to Christine Matas, who's our Good Neighbor Authority Program Manager. And I don't know how to get back.
Nope, that's good.
Sorry.
I am going to go back so you can see a picture of one of our treatments. Whoop, doesn't want to go back. Oh well, I'll start here. Okay, in the essence of time, I'll just stay here. All right, hi there, Christine Matas, the GNA Program Manager at DFFM. So what is Good Neighbor Authority? And I will just start there really briefly. So the Good Neighbor Authority is an authority that was passed in the 2014 Farm Bill that gave states, counties, and tribes the authority to work on federal land. At that same time, it also gave the states the authority to retain the revenue that comes from a timber sale. And that's really important because that money is retained by the state, but it has to be used back on the land. So it's a super value to the federal agency that that money, that revenue, isn't lost back to the Washington office, it stays right on the ground. When it was established, it was only given to BLM and the U.S. Forest Service lands. But recently, just last year, that was expanded to include U.S. Fish and Wildlife and National Park Service lands as well. And currently, about 25 states utilize GNA. All right, so how did GNA get started at DFFM? Well, in 2016, we engaged in a master agreement with the Region 3 of the Forest Service. This was to support the Forestry movement, but nothing really got started until about 2018. We got some agreements in place and work started. We also, in 2018, started our first agreement with the BLM. But again, things didn't really get started until 2021 when John mentioned the Healthy Forest Initiative came in. It built our agency and gave us the capacity to fulfill requests from our partners to help them do work on the ground. So thankfully, because of HFI, when the request came in from what I'm going to call a triple team partnership, we were able to say, yes, we can engage with you and do that work. And I'll talk more about that triple team partnership in a little bit. All right, so what are the benefits of doing G&A? The first is that the states have an expedited procurement system. So if you can think about how the federal government runs much more slowly, so it might be harder to get something done on the ground. Well, with the states, it moves much more quickly, so we're increasing pace and scale. We also have that enlarged contractor base that John mentioned. We can put our work out to more industry that has the capacity in our state. Again, we can capture that revenue that I talked about earlier too, which is extremely beneficial. G&A also taps into a different funding source, the National Forest System lands funding, federal funding. There is not a match requirement with Good Neighbor Authority work. And Good Neighbor Authority agreements are 10 years, which enables us to put more projects into that agreement to increase our scope and scale of the work. So with Bill and IRA funding, we were able to grow. As you can see, those are some huge numbers. We were given $21.7 million in Bill and IRA funding over 2 years, 23 and 24. Our amazing partner gave us, matched that almost with $18 million. So this gave us a 15-year program of work, which is substantial. We're talking landscape scale work. Now, since program inception, we have treated 14,000 acres as of last month on using the G&A program. We have about 56,000 planned, already in agreements that are funded, and we will add 30,000 more in the next 1 to 2 years in additional agreements. Okay, so on to our partnerships. G&A, at the heart of G&A is our partnerships. We can't do anything without engaging with somebody else, right? We're engaging with the Forest Service mostly. About 95% of the work that we do is on National Forest System land currently. So I want to talk about what makes our partnerships successful. How are we getting all this work done? In federal fiscal 24 alone, we treated 7,000 acres. So we are exponentially increasing our annual treatment. So at the heart of a Good Neighbor agreement or Good Neighbor partnership is a leap of faith. You know, a partner says, here is a lot of money, please go treat the land. So it's a leap of faith that they're allowing somebody else to come in and do the work on their land. So it's really important to build trust, but we have to earn that trust. And the way we earn it is through honest and open and frequent communication. We also clearly define who does what. What are the roles and responsibilities of this partnership? And what I find once we establish those rules, that people can relax, knowing that nobody's toes are gonna get stepped on, or people are staying in their lanes. And people can relax in that way, which makes everyone feel much better. We also acknowledge our mistakes. We're not perfect. We might not get the treatment or the prescription right the first time, but we acknowledge that, we're honest about it, and we learn from it. That's extremely important. We also don't want to strive for perfection, because that might get us into analysis paralysis. Okay, thank you. I guess I am out of time, but I'm almost done. Our huge triple team partnership is DFFM, the Forest Service, and the Salt River Project. I believe some people from SRP will be here today or this week. Not sure if they're here yet. But this has been an unbelievable partnership. We're getting great work done. And the next steps I wanted to just provide really quickly are, most of the work that we've done is in the Forestry footprint. And I will say that because of GNA and because of Bill and Ira, the Forestry priority landscape was the most successful out of all 21 landscapes in the country in getting work done, which means that it will continue to get more funding to get more work done. But we are a big state. We have much more needs outside of Forestry. So how do we continue to solve these big problems? We need to engage with more partners. Are there other power and water companies that we can engage with? How about engaging with more counties and tribes to help them establish their own GNA programs? Towns and cities, who are the stakeholders that we can partner with to get more work done on these vulnerable landscapes? And I guess I'll end there. Thank you very much.